Hello everyone and welcome back to another Fingal video. So my home library tour, and this time I would be showing Barry's books here, my husband Barry, who works in the Blanchardstown Library. If you please.
Hello. So I'm just going to tell you about some of the types of books I like. I'm kind of unusual in that I actually don't read a lot of fiction. I tend to read more non-fiction. History and travel in particular, some politics, especially American politics. It's certainly interesting at the moment, and photography obviously as well. The people who will have seen some of my photography videos and tutorials. So I'll show you some of the books that I have. I actually don't have a huge amount of physical books because I tend to use a lot of do a lot of e-reading now because it saves on space and paper. But some of them I still have a few physical books there. So I will start maybe with some history. So I have a great interest in the history of France. Obviously being married to a French woman, and that's a lovely book I got a few years ago in Paris. And it's not really just a book. It's got beautiful images, but it's got beautiful documents that you can fold out and maps that you can take out, all about the history of Paris. Which is of particular interest to me. It's one of my favourite cities to visit. So that's one. And I've read a lot of other books about the history of France and about famous French people, biographies of Napoleon and de Gaulle and these types of people. Obviously, I have an interest in Irish history as well. And there's one area of Irish history I have a particular interest in, if I can find it here. This is a book written by Mick O'Farrell, and it's available in Blanchardstown Library. Now, Mick O'Farrell wrote a book called 1916 Diaries, and it was an account of the 1916 Rising from the point of view of an ordinary Irish rebel and an ordinary British soldier. Now, what's interesting about this is that the Irish rebel was actually my great-grandfather on my mother's side, a guy called Joseph de Bruin or Joe Brown, and he was in the Jacobs factory. So Mick O'Farrell basically bought his diary at auction in Sotheby's and wrote this book based on it. So it's a really fascinating bit of family history. So that's a particular interest, and like I said, you can get that in Fingal libraries. As I said to you already, one of my other interests is travel, and I've always had an interest in that. And one of the first kind of people I ever read when it came to travel was this man here, Michael Palin, famous as well as a member of Monty Python. And I remember as a kid watching his documentaries around the world in 80 days and pole to pole, full circle, all of these things, and being absolutely fascinated by them. I was lucky enough to meet the man twice actually at various book signings and questions and answer sessions, and he's really fascinating. That's his latest one, where he actually travelled to North Korea, and there's also a two-part documentary about it. But the book, as usual in the case, contains a lot more information, a lot more detail about the trip, so I'd recommend that. Some other travel writers I like: Paul Theroux. Very good writer. If you know Louis Theroux, documentary maker, Paul Theroux is actually his father. This one is a really interesting book. Again, it's available in Fingal libraries as a physical book, but they also have it as an audio book, which is an interesting way to listen to it. And this is all about travelling in the deep south of the United States. And what's interesting about this book is it's less about the places he visits and more about the people he meets and the conversations he had, and learning about the various social issues that are still going on there. And especially now what's going on in America, it gives you a good understanding of maybe some of the reasons for some of the issues that are currently kind of bubbling over at the moment. So would recommend that. And there's other travel writers I like as well. Bill Bryson is fantastic, very funny as well. There's probably too many of them to mention. So we'll move on to the next one now. So I've talked about history, I've talked about travel. Photography is obviously my other great passion, and as I said already, some of you will know me from my tutorials and videos about photography that I've been doing during the kind of lockdown. And one of my favourite photographers is this guy here called David Noten, who's an English photographer, and I remember when I bought this book, I was kind of still learning and didn't really, was struggling a little bit to improve, and this book completely turned it around. It was all about light, basically, and the importance of waiting for the right light, and I've been lucky enough in the last few weeks to do a few webinars with this photographer, and absolutely fantastic. So, you know, had a big influence on me. Photography books are kind of one of the ones you can't really get as an ebook, because they kind of tend to have to be quite big like that so you can see the images. One that is a very new book. It's called Outdoor Photography Essentials, and it's actually written by me. So I've been writing tutorials for many years about photography, and I finally decided to compile them into a book. I published it, self-published it on Amazon as an ebook, but there is also a print version available as well. But it's mainly as an ebook. But so that was only in the last few weeks I published that. So it's kind of nice to see your work all in one go. So I said I was interested in history, and I love football as well. And a way of I found of combining those two is I have an interest in the actual football grounds themselves and the history of them, especially the ones in England, the older ones. And what books have I got there? There's one, for example, on the football grounds of Britain by a guy called Simon Inglis. And he's probably the only football ground historian, possibly in the world, certainly in the UK. And he was so knowledgeable, he was actually on the Hillsborough Commission that came up with new guidelines for safer grounds. And this is just on the history, lovely old photographs of the grounds. And it's just something I find particularly interesting. There's another one here, if I can find it, by the same author, called Engineering Archie. There it is. And this is one I got recently, actually. I had to go online to get this because it's an extremely rare book, written by the same guy as before, and it's about a man called Archibald Leach, who was a Scottish engineer. And pretty much all the major football grounds in England, Scotland, and even Dalymount in Ireland, Windsor Park in Belfast, he designed them. And it was just a really interesting book about how he went about it. And that's just one little interest I've always had as well. I'm sure you know that the libraries are back open again. It's not quite the same as it has been, but you can go in, you can browse, you can order books. So, you know, make sure to get back in and take whatever, you know, find the books that you like. So, thank you.
So that was Barry, and if you have watched this video right till the end, thank you very much, and we hope to see you very soon in the libraries. Thank you, bye.